I've never spoken about this. This is the first time I'm going to speak about this. And so we went from so busy, flourishing, incredible, to all of a sudden like, holy fuck, we're going to go bankrupt. Like in a matter of a couple of weeks. I always say to my team, like, nothing is secure until it's signed. And like, even then, big corporations, it's not signed. Like a signature for a big corporation for a little guy like us means like they can just, they own us. Cue the economy spinning out of control and brands just saying, we're not going to shoot campaigns. We're pulling all our budgets. We were literally, I was begging people to give us campaigns.
So it's interesting because if you were like to look at it in a competitive level, we are competitors.
We are competitors.
In terms of someone being like, I want a video for my brand. Who am I going to go to?
Yeah, I feel like I have been up against you for jobs many times and probably lost quite a few, which is, yeah, are we competitors? Is this it's like a duel?
I mean, essentially, like in the core of it, yeah, but not recently though. I think post-COVID, I've gone a completely different direction.
You have, and I love your direction. It's very inspiring. I'm very inspired by you, Arielle. I am.
I'm inspired by you.
Oh my God, this is so cute.
I want to know so many things, but I feel like we've never met.
We've never met.
I've just watched from afar. Yeah. And you're right, we have been like neck and neck in things, but I don't think I've ever known that we're neck and neck. Have you just had emails? Do you only know because you got emails and stuff and then people have been like, oh, and then you've seen me put out the work? Like how have you known?
I'm trying to think. Well, I think I always ask clients, like, who's in the mix? I want to know who we're up against. I think... Also, like, I've had people who want internships email us saying, hi, Cinema Tom. Like, you know, that happens all the time. Like, you can tell they're just blanket emailing agencies. And I'm like, okay, that puts us in, like, the same basket, right? Because they want to work for you, they want to work for me. Yeah. So that's happened a couple of times. Oh my God, but I also really think we have a similar aesthetic. Yeah. Like, and God, I could talk all day about, like, women in advertising and women in film. But I think... that's the core of how our work is probably, or the type of jobs that come our way is similar, you know?
Yes, absolutely. And Melbourne is so small and
teeny.
There's only a select few that actually have money to like do video.
Money?
At
what is that? I know. I like once a month I'm like, should we move to London? Should we move
100%.
anywhere else but Australia? Because there's just there's no cash.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, but this is really cool.
I don't even know where to start because it's like essentially a meeting of the minds because I feel like...
She's calling it.
Yeah, because I feel like when two women in business are doing this, they would have like gone to uni together.
Yeah, true.
Or whatever. There's never really an opportunity because even if I saw you at a cocktail party, I don't even know. I know exactly who you are, but I'm not sure I'd go up to you and be like, "Hi, Chelsea, I'm Arielle." Like, I mean, I probably would, but inside I'd be like,
I think
"Should
you
I do
would.
that?"
I think
like,
you would.
but you know, I think I'd always be like, "Should I do that?" Oh my God! And then you posted on your socials being like, "I want to share more about the process," and I was like, "Let's just rip the fucking Band-Aid off.
Yeah,
go hard, come on the pod, and we'll go deep on the process because there's so much.
There is so much, and I think that." I mean, I haven't even started posting anything about that conversation, but for a long time I've wanted to talk about just that whole process. And you have a podcast called Process. So it's fitting.
100%. So I think that you and I started at pretty much the exact same time.
Yeah, I think we did.
How did you get your start?
This is going to sound so backwards, but I had a baby. It was all an accident. Like, I was working in TV. Yeah. And
as what? What kind of role?
So I wanted to be Sandra Sully.
Oh.
Yes.
Fuck yeah.
I was like a small town country girl. Every night we would watch Channel 10 News at 5 or 6 p.m, whatever time it was on in the 80s and 90s. And I used to look at her with her fabulous do that, you know, we've seen evolve over so many decades. And I was like, I want to be her. I want to be her. And I was like from a small town where that just wasn't a thing. Like, it was never going to happen. But I then moved to the big smoke and then, long story short, ended up working in news, in TV. Yeah. My first job was rolling the auto cue, not for Sandra Sully because she was in Sydney, but the equivalent of Sandra Sully in Melbourne. And I was training to be a journo. So I was like kind of on the path to TV journo. And that's like a whole... that's like a whole episode.
I can see that for you.
Yeah, I'm
like looking at you. I'm like,
there are archival tapes of me reporting on terrible things, and for whatever reason, news didn't end up being what I loved in the end, and then I moved into production. So I was working on The Project at Network 10. So still news, but like news delivered differently.
Yeah,
and
right.
it was fantastic. It was magical. It was like such a highlight of my career and my life. And then I got pregnant.
Right.
And then that kind of doors started closing. Like meetings that I had been in, I suddenly was omitted from. I wasn't in them anymore. And I think it was like, I don't think it was anyone's fault. I think it was just like, she's off to have a baby. Like, let's put her out to pasture. Or is that the saying? I don't know. Let's put the little cow out to pasture. And it was like, I was so puzzled by it. But I was also like, oh, okay, this is like, this is the way it is. Yeah, this is like the way it is. Okay. And I actually, like, looking back on that, I'm like, I thought they were doing me a service of like not, like just easing me off the
Not
work,
putting
which
too
is
much
such
on your
bullshit.
plate. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it made me kind of like, you know, earth shattering. Having a child is just like a huge thing in itself. And then I kind of had Arthur, my son, and I was like, I don't think I can go back to TV. Like, I don't think that's what I want for me when I'm trying to have a young family. And then I picked up a camera, and then the rest is history, baby.
Wow.
Yeah, so no, I have no training. I started advertising at uni, I dropped out.
Yeah.
And then I did media comms, majored in journalism.
Yeah.
So I'm still, I would say I'm like a storyteller first and foremost. And then, yeah, I nearly called Tiny Disco Chelsea Morley Productions. Can you imagine?
Very different world.
And my husband was like, you know, it might just be bigger than you. Like, you should anticipate that it might be bigger than just Chelsea Morley. And I was like, are you joking? Like, this is just I just thought it would be like, I'd contribute to the rent, and then maybe when my kids were older, I'd just go back and do something else.
Did you think that you would be just a videographer for hire?
Yeah, but I didn't think I was good at it. Like, I loved it. I was really passionate about it, but I was like, this is not permanent. Like, I don't know anything. Like, I didn't know what ISO was. I didn't know how to handle a camera. I literally didn't understand the technicalities of camera, and I probably still don't. Like, I just know what I want to shoot.
Yeah.
So it all kind of happened really randomly and organically, and I know people don't want to hear that, but it just kind of like snowballed from just girl with camera to then entire team with multiple cameras.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of it.
So when you started, what kind of clients were you attracting? And how did you go from, okay, I'm now a girl with a camera, to getting paid to be a girl with a camera?
I did lots of free work.
Right.
So I was like, if I'm going to get a client, I need something to show.
Yeah.
And so I would say two things. I did a lot of like, I shot what I wanted to shoot, because there's no point doing the work you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to shoot, you know, God, I don't want to say what I didn't want to shoot, but I didn't want to shoot things that didn't feed my soul. So I made it my like goal to make beautiful visuals.
Yeah.
And I was really fortunate. My husband was a photographer, and I would beg him and beg his clients to just let me kick around behind the scenes. It was terrible. Like, the
it was
stuff I was
really
shooting
good
was
timing
horrible.
though. Good
It was
timing,
really good
because
timing.
they like didn't necessarily have video in their budget,
They
or they were
didn't.
thinking about it, but then all of a sudden there's this girl here being like, I'll whip something together for you, just let me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have my little baby strapped to my chest. There's photos of me with Arthur strapped to my chest, who's now 8, so it feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
And I just didn't care about the money. I was like, I just want to do it. I just want to do it, and I needed to like let my creativity out. So that's how I started. And then the second part is connections. Like, I just chatted to girlfriends and chatted to people who worked. Like, any person, no matter where you are in life, there's someone who works somewhere who knows someone who can potentially, like, people will give you time. People will chat with you. It's how I got my job in TV, through someone I knew. Like, I set up someone like teed up a meeting with me, but it was like through conversations and just putting yourself out there. Nothing comes to you. So after I did a bunch of free work, I did this random free shoot for El Croatia, and it was just, they were just like, do whatever. And I just did this crazy film. And then I had a meeting with Mecca, and it was with a girl who I'm still friends with, and it was through my friend Lucy, who was like, just go and chat with them. Like, they weren't doing video at the time.
Yeah.
And I just remember sitting in this meeting, and they were like, so have you shot for clients before? I was like, no, not really. Like, this is the film I did for El Croatia. I showed them one video, and they were like, okay, cool. Like, sure. And we just hit it off on a personal level. And I think they were like, she's going to be cheap. Like, let's just experiment. And we really experimented together. And I think I would say like our shtick at Tiny Disco is beauty.
Yeah.
And that's how we formed those foundations, because there were no consequences. I wasn't like diving straight into big campaigns. You know, so many times I like wiped the card and we had to reshoot stuff, or like the edit was just terrible, or, you know, you have to make those mistakes.
And they shoot monthly, don't they, at Mecca? Like, how often were you shooting?
I was shooting all the time.
Yeah.
Like, but we were like throwing staff into tutorials and like people who didn't necessarily want to be on camera were like putting makeup on them, and it really taught me how to shoot faces.
Yeah.
And personality, and I would always leave the camera rolling because I never loved the really commercial moments. I always loved the bits in between, and that's still to this day what I coach my team on. I'm like, it's not the moments that's like traditionally beautiful. It's like the little giggle when the model doesn't think they're on camera, or the moment where they drop something, or
100%.
That's what I live for.
Yes, I can see that in your work too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The silly stuff.
Yeah. Well, the human moments rather than the like smoldering, beautiful.
Yeah,
like...
no one wants to see that. Yeah.
So fast forward to you then having a team.
Yeah.
How did that work, that you then got off the tools? Obviously, when you shoot, you kind of eventuate into having a lighting team around you. Somebody handles the edits if you're not too precious, or you've kind of got a formula going.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
I mean, it's still a work in process.
Yeah.
Progress.
Yeah.
It really came from just bulk work. Like, it just came from all of a sudden the momentum was building. And I mean, someone once said to me, the biggest moment, there's two really big moments in business. It's your first hire and your first fire. And I really remember that first hire being like, holy shit, like suddenly stuff's getting real. And we were like in this dodgy, horrible, freezing, mouse riddled warehouse in St Kilda, and we hired a full-time editor, and she was just gorgeous. She lived in Ballarat, and she would drive from Ballarat every day, and she was so dedicated. And I just really saw in her like this wonderful human who like believed in me. And I was like, why would anyone ever want to come and work for me, let alone work in this horrible warehouse where there's like literally dead mice in the office. And so from that, it just gradually grew. Like, we were getting, you know, people would email me and they'd be like, you and your team. And I'm like, it's literally like me and one editor and sometimes Stu. And I just said yes. Like, brands would come to me and they'd be like, hey, can you do this? Like, can you do a green screen? I'd never done a green screen before. I'm like, sure. YouTube. Yeah. Can you do this? Sure, no worries. And we just kept doing it. Yeah. And then I'd say, like, the really pivotal moment that allowed us to grow was, like, one huge client that gave us a chance. And they basically said to us, like, we love your work. Do you want to be an agency? And they like helped me shape the agency, which is unheard of. Like, that just doesn't happen. Like, they literally listed out all the jobs in an agency and they were like, you need these people.
Who was that?
I don't want to say.
Okay.
I don't want to say because I might get them in trouble, because I think you're technically supposed to go through different, you know, you're supposed to go to tender, and it was a bit of a, but big brands have a way, if they want something, they will get it. Yes. And it was so weird, and it was so hard, and I was pregnant with my second child, and I was like still learning how to quote for stuff. Like, I'm not a traditional cinematographer. I don't have, like, I direct and shoot. People don't often do that. I don't know how you work, but my teams on set are tiny, like tight. I love a tight team. I love the energy flowing. I don't love a mass 50-plus person crew. I think it's intimidating. I don't think I can get my best work in that setting. And I've done that. I've done TVCs where it's like terrifying and you've got like a million people on set. But yeah, that one client like educated me, took me through the best education I ever had, and it was so hard, like terrifyingly hard. Wow. And then the team grew from that, and then that's the next difficult part, right, is hiring the right people. Yeah. And sometimes it doesn't work. And I really, up until last year, took a lot of that really personally. Like, I took the business and my identity was the work we did, and I really, you know, if someone left, I'd be like, why are they leaving me?
Yeah,
like,
I had an editor leave about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And It was just the style of work that we had for her in terms of like what I could commit to even financially and the vibe. Like I couldn't offer her full-time work and that's what she wanted.
Yeah.
I think I was in fucking tears and she's like, whoa, you're taking this really personally. Yeah. And I was like, you're
and
like
she's
10
chill.
years.
She's like, okay, no worries.
Yeah, and she's like 10 years younger than me and I was like, you don't understand what it means.
Gosh. Yeah.
It's like embarrassing.
Yes. And then I think that like, I really took that heavy and like would be lying in bed at night thinking about like why has someone left or why did they say that or why are they demanding this of me or why like the staff process is a lot.
It's so intense, isn't it?
It's full time. Like I understand why people have HR. Yeah. Because like everyone who's ever walked through our doors is incredible, but I think just the complexities of humans, right, is like you have to navigate so much. And then on top of that, you have to consistently put out great work and make sure they get along, but maybe don't get along too well because then the work suffers anyway. And then like, you name it, we've been through it. Teams are a lot.
How big is your team?
But I love them.
How big is your team now?
We were around 30.
Yeah.
Until last year, and now we're around 20.
Did that fluctuate because the work has tightened up?
Yeah.
It's so hard, isn't it? I think that's one of my biggest fears with growth is that like is it an accordion that goes like
the contraction and the expansion. And I mean clients are so demanding in, they'll come to you if you're going through a tender process or whatever, and they might be like come to you in April or May and they'll be like, by July we need the whole team equipped, and you're like, how the fuck, if we get this job, am I going to just hire 12 people and deliver the best work we can do? Like it's really intense, but also if you don't have those bigger contracts in place, you can't grow sustainably. And I'd say we didn't have enough solid contracts in place, and a lot of the work, the economy just tightened and everyone pushed massive jobs into the new year, or they just canned jobs altogether. Major clients were like, we're not shooting campaigns anymore, and that's our livelihood. And so we went from so busy, flourishing, incredible, to all of a sudden like, holy fuck, we're going to go bankrupt, like in a matter of a couple of weeks. Yeah. And that was like, it had to happen because we were like on cloud nine, and I would say confidently that myself and my husband were feeling pretty cocky. We were like, we're doing great work, we're so good, we're amazing. And then this happened and it was awful. It was like the worst experience of my life.
What literally happened?
One major client that we were in the running, an international client that we were like basically in the final discussions of an ongoing contract that would mean we could hire people. Yeah. I don't want to go into the intricacies of it. It's really complex, but they just pulled a pin. And it was due to a number of factors, which I don't think I should go into, but nothing. I always say to my team, like, nothing is secure until it's signed. And like, even then, big corporations, it's not signed. Like a signature for a big corporation for a little guy like us means like they own us, they can flick us to the side anytime. So that fell through. We had lots of really difficult campaigns. So, when you get like one campaign where you're like, we just can't nail the creative, or there's different voices, or there's different feedback, and we had a number, and it was just getting really like, what is going on? Like all these parts were just not fitting and not working. And then we had a major, a really big campaign. They were like, oops, we'll just do it in January, which is like, that's fine, but it's September, and you've budgeted and you've got fucking 30 staff.
Yeah, the cash flow.
You're paying
belly up.
And you have many, many weeks up your sleeve. It's not months of cash flow. And so if big jobs suddenly end, you start to go like, holy fuck. And I've never spoken about this. This is the first time I'm going to speak about this. I'd like to think it was like the 7-year itch. We're about to enter our 7th year of existence of Tiny Disco. And we were playing with the big dogs. Like we were up against some really big, admirable, like crazy agencies for work. And that's, wow, amazing, but also a huge amount of pressure. I have a very young team and I'm not experienced in ad land, and I'm not a white middle-aged male who can just go and like tug off some brand marketing manager somewhere and like fucking gift someone a Chanel handbag, which some agency guys do. Like I'm not in that game. So perfect storm, lots of, it was just like dominoes. Like lost this big client. They just ghosted us. Like they just ghosted me and wouldn't explain. And it wasn't until many months later where I sat down with someone from that team and I was like, can you just tell me what happened? And they told me the real reason why they left, and it was very personal to me. It was to do with me. And that was really confronting. And so that happened. I won't go into like the detail of it, but I can guarantee if I were a white male, that wouldn't have happened. It was like, it was just like a really unfortunate sequence of events under an enormous amount of pressure. Anyway, that happened. We had a number of jobs just push into the new year, and we had no active business development. Like, I'm talking 7 years. I had never advertised, approached a brand. Like, we felt cocky. We were like, everyone just comes to us. It's so amazing. And then cue the economy spinning out of control and brands just saying, we're not going to shoot campaigns. We're pulling all our budgets. We were literally, I was begging people to give us campaigns, and we were shooting things for $5,000 with talent. Like, this is only 6 months ago. And I was not in a great place. I was in a really, really like stressed out, highly strung, angry, you know, so many people's livelihood depended on me going and getting work. It was no one else's job. It was in no one else's job description. And I very quickly spiraled into a state of total burnout, like total burnout. I've never been in a position like that before. And I think, I didn't think I'd get emotional about this, but I think it's important that I do.
Yeah.
Because no one saw it. And I think as a woman, you like try not to be emotional when you're a leader, and you try. No, I feel really good speaking about this, and I hope it like helps other people. And I just felt like a failure. Yeah. And we had to make people redundant, and it was horrific. Like, these were people, I pride myself on building a beautiful culture. We had couples, we had best friends, we have people who hang out on the weekend, and, you know, we were the fun, cute agency. It was so cute. Everyone, no one thought it's a business, guys. And a very young team, they took it really badly, as you do. Yeah. I mean, I'm from TV where redundancies happen every 6 months, and you'd see someone marching out with a box and you're like, see you later, let's have coffee on the weekend. And honestly, like, the seniors on the team were very supportive, and I had some wonderful team members who were like, I'm here, I'm standing by you, like, we're going to do this. I had other team members who didn't even speak to me the next day, who didn't come to a one-on-one meeting with me the next day. And I just thought, like, it was just so confronting to experience that. And, you know, you hear the Chinese whispers of them saying, you should be doing more, like, why aren't they doing enough? And I was like, I didn't sleep for like 6 weeks. I was just calling fucking anyone, like begging to try and keep the work coming in and to try and pay salaries. Like, we were getting consultants to, like, we were looking at 2-bedroom apartments because we were going to sell our house to fund the business. And that was like, yeah, maybe like too much information, but I felt like the team, some members on the team were like, they just don't care. They just don't care. But I carried that so heavily. And then, I hit a state where I couldn't function anymore. I could not. I associated the office with so much trauma. I couldn't step in the office. And I just shut my laptop for a month and I walked away.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, and I said to my husband, actually made me do it because I was not in a good place, and I was not caring for my kids. I was not caring for myself. I was like, and this is the reason I'm like upset and talking about this, is because I think we're so, as women, we're so like, I'm going to be like a boss babe, and I'm going to do it all, and I'm going to have kids, and I'm going to be married, and I'm going to own a house, and it's going to be in Vogue, and it's like, it ain't that.
And they're like, slay. And you're like,
And it's just not that. Like, you know, it really was such a hugely horrific situation I was in. And I took that month to just mend and like stop. Because I think you're probably the same when you're just like, the reason I was like, how do you do all this stuff? Because I was like high functioning workaholic. Like I was working till 2 a.m. every single night because I was just like, work harder, work harder, work harder.
Yeah.
You cannot do that. And it's not healthy for you to do that. It's not healthy for your family. It's not healthy for your friends. It's not healthy for your team to see you work like that. So I took a month off, and I couldn't even face the team. Like I had to have my wonderful ops manager and my husband just say, Chelsea's not here for a month. And they were like, what the fuck is going on? Like we've just lost team members. We've lost all this work. And I just really carried that. I was like, I just felt so ashamed that I wasn't there to carry them. But the fact was I was suicidal. Like I was not even, I couldn't make any rational decisions. And I think, like, bless my husband. I've never said that word out loud, except when I got help. But he just said to me, if we have to fucking live in a 1-bedroom apartment, I don't care. Like, you have to be okay. Yeah. And I'd never heard that. Like, I'd always felt like I just had to be the best at everything.
Yeah.
You know?
Be Chelsea from Tiny Disco.
Be Chelsea from Tiny Disco. That's like, you know, all this and like always has the answer. And I fucking don't. No one does, you know?
Yeah.
So that's what happened last year.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
All of that.
We have to break down that barrier of like, fuck, I don't want to be like some non-emotional corporate person in the corner office. And that's anti my vibe.
So talk me through what you did for that month to recover from burnout, and how did you identify it as burnout?
Yeah. I didn't. My husband did. He was like, it was never an option to me not to go into work and keep working. I was like, we'll just keep working. Like, I'll just keep finding more work. I'll just keep talking. And I was like in a frenzy. I just remember the state of my brain. And I had, like, my husband was kind of like trying to softly help, and he was like, maybe you should talk to a business coach, or maybe, and I was like, fuck, I don't want to do that. And then I remember just being on a call with this business coach. He was really nice, and he was a he, which was a problem for me. I was like, I just don't feel like we're aligned. And I was trying to be really strong because, you know, I always am when I'm talking to men in business.
Yeah.
And he just looked, it was virtual, and he just looked at me and he was like, how are you? And I just fucking lost it. Like, I just could not hold onto it. And my office is glass and open plan. And I was just like looking at the back wall of my office, just like could not stop crying, because I knew that like we were in dire straits. I was like, we either have to, like, we were like, how the fuck do we get out of the lease? Like, you know, the lease of our building is gigantic. Like, what am I going to do? Like, do I just go and work as an art director for a brand? Like, and I was like, that's kind of appealing to me, because then I wouldn't have the pressure of like maintaining and having to like keep people afloat. Like, people have fucking babies on the way. People have fucking mortgages. People have, so he really, in those moments of like when I was just in a frenzy, and like, I just remember being on the lounge room floor at night just crying hysterically, and I was like, I cannot get out of this. Like, we cannot get out of this. I was panicked beyond belief. And he was just like, Chelsea, you're burnt out. Like, you're not seeing straight. You're not seeing clearly. And that word was so like, you know, I think it's thrown around really flippantly. Like, I'm so burnt out. I'm so busy. This busy trap culture we're in. And it wasn't until I got, I will happily talk about it, and I would recommend it to any business owner. Beyond Blue does a free small business owner course. It's 8 or 11 weeks or something. And it's basically like someone who's trained in cognitive behavioral therapy, but with that business background. So if you're in like a traumatic situation, or you're like going bankrupt or whatever, they really help, I guess, counsel you through your mental health with the business side in mind. And it wasn't until I probably got on the first call with her that I nearly didn't go on, because I was like, I'd tried therapy. I'd tried going to a therapist. I hated the person I'd been seeing, and I just felt worse about myself. And isn't that the whole dance about therapy? Finding someone who you feel comfortable enough with. Yeah. And then this woman, through this system, jumped on. She was in Queensland, and she was so calm, and I just felt safe with her. And they do this incredible thing where on the first day they speak with you, they get you to write down like it's like a line. I don't want to say it because it'll probably make me sob, but it's basically like the state of where you're at. And mine was really dire. And she was like, they ask you all these survey questions of like, are you safe? Are you this? Are you that? And then gradually towards the end of it, if you're doing the steps that they take you on, and it worked for me. I have a friend, it didn't work for them. It's like, you know, it may work for certain people depending on where you're at. I just slowly saw, and I've got like a full track record of that, like myself come out of that the depths of despair and burnout. And I guess shifting away from burnout, I'll never forget the first moment, like the first active action point this woman said. She's like, let's look at your calendar. And I can visualize my calendar from that week where I was like, I cannot fucking do this anymore. I had like 5 a.m. till 7 a.m. work on this creative deck. 7 a.m. till 8:50, get the kids ready for school. 8:50 to 11, like meeting. I was like back-to-back meetings, and then I would work until 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and I just, this spiral, and there was no joy. She was like, okay, we're going to look for the joyous parts. And it was vacant. There was no joy in my calendar whatsoever. And she was like, okay, how are we going to get joy in? And I was like, I don't have time for joy. Like, I don't have time for yoga. I don't have time to read books. And I'm such a bookworm. Like, I have books with me wherever I go. And so that was the first step, was like eliminating all the work stuff, because that had dictated my life. And I was on this crazy trajectory of build. And I just felt like I had a taste for success, right? And I felt like it will never be enough, you know? It will never be enough until I own Mars and I have an agency on Pluto, and I'm like, you know, you just keep, when you get the big clients, you keep wanting to go bigger and bigger, and that's not healthy. So yeah, I stepped away for that whole month, and the first week I was a mess. Like I've never done that. I've never not had work or anything to do. And my husband was like, don't clean, don't do anything around the house. Like, just sit down and breathe, and like just meditate or just do yoga. So I started going to yoga, and the first yoga class I sat in, I just cried. I cried the whole class, and it was like cathartic. It was just like, oh my God, this is so heavy. And like, I was so out of touch with my body and my soul, and like to stretch and breathe was like revolutionary. You know, it sounds crazy. We all think we're on the wellness trajectory, but I was like so far. So I did that. I didn't put pressure on myself. I went when I felt like it. I went for walks. I had stopped seeing friends in that crazy period, and
because they're going to be like, how are you? And you're like, how much time do you have?
Yeah.
And also, I'm just going to burst into tears.
I can't start talking about it. Everything's fine. We're just really busy. You know, that's such a like easy, boring cap to put on it when someone asks you how you are. And then I just started reading again, and I started sitting in the sunshine, and I started looking at my kids, because for 7 years I hadn't really looked at my kids. And I started really like just breathing. I hadn't breathed. I hadn't had a thoughtful, intentional breath for 6 years.
Wow.
So that's what I did for a month. And then I don't think I was like fully amazing. I feel like only really probably now. So this was like September. It's almost a year. I'd say probably now I'm in a really good place. But then returning to work was a whole nother like big thing. Thing.
Why does it make you emotional to say that it was the first time that you took a breath in 6 years?
Because I think there is something about our generation of women, and I don't know if you were the same, but I was brought up like, you can be anything you want to be. Yeah. You can do everything. You can have it all. You can have it all. And that really drove me in every aspect. Like, I always just wanted to be the best at whatever I did, like sports, academia, math, failed all the time. Terrible at math, but that's okay. Like, and I even just want to like excel all the time. It's like this weird trait built into me. And I think that's probably what like made the business. I was just like such a perfectionist. You can't be a perfectionist all the time. Like, stuff has to go out that's not fully okay. I think like I felt ashamed that I had neglected myself. And I felt ashamed that I had shown other people that that's what success looked like, when underneath I was really just like sickened by how fast everything was moving, and how like, you know, I had Audrey. She was 3 weeks old, and a beauty brand in Sydney, who I won't name, they were like, hey, we want you to shoot for us. And I was like, oh my God, I have to do this. And I was still like bleeding from birth. And I fucking flew to Sydney with a newborn baby and shot their campaign because I was like, I just have to do this. Like, I have to do it. All the work's going to go, you know? There's always that fear that the work's never going to return. Was it worth it? No. That brand, we ended up shooting with them in lockdown and they were really unhappy and it was like a whole problem. It's like that perfectionist in me. So yeah, I feel both emotional about it because that's a long period of time to neglect yourself. Mm-hmm. But I also feel emotional in a positive way because now I can, you know, my kids are still young and I can change that dialogue and I can be there. Yeah. You know, I was never at Arthur's assemblies or I was never at gymnastics with my daughter because I was like, I've just got to do the work. I've got to work fucking 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And it's never enough, you know?
Yeah.
When you're doing your own thing.
The reason of why we do what we do is so interesting. I remember, do you know Alison Rice?
Yeah.
Yeah, she and I had a call, I think about 4 years ago, like when she started doing her one-on-one coaching. Mm-hmm. And I admitted to her that I was going through really, really serious, quite emotionally abusive trauma when I was in maybe 2016, 17, 18.
Oh my God.
The years that I built Cinematom. And the reason that Cinematom did so well was because it wasn't because I closed the door and I locked into the business and I went all in. It was because it was the only escape.
It was an outlet
that I had. And I had to wrap myself up in this all-consuming business world.
Yeah.
Because it was the only kind of air that I actually wanted to breathe away from this coping mechanism. And I was like to Alison, I don't know how to grow this business when I'm healing trauma here.
Wow.
How do I band-aid a business that's built on trauma? And how do I now find happiness in it? Because it represents such a beautiful slog in me, but its foundations is fueled by avoidance and all this other shit. Yeah, and she was like, yes, it was built on trauma. Cool. Like literally you were in tears for a lot of the time, but you can't discount all that, whatever it is. And likewise in you, like that thing that you have to just keep working pushing. And going.
Yeah.
Like how we can kind of, in hindsight, identify that, but then also not leave a bad taste in our mouth, but be so utterly proud of who she was because that's all she knew.
Yeah. I know. It's like another identity, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you feel that?
Yeah, it's weird.
It's like,
I love her so much and I'm so proud of her. But fuck, like, just, it's all right.
Lot.
It's going to be okay if you don't.
And I think part of that is also like aging and maturing and you shed your skin. I'm so into this, like you shed your skin every 7 years like and I feel like that is like, you evolve into a different person physically. And like, wow. Congrats on getting through that. And it's hard to change that like perception of something that you've worked so hard on too.
Yeah, it was interesting. And then obviously my business model completely changed as well because Tiana and I, who I know you're aware of, Tiana and I were like an absolute tag team.
Yeah.
Our business model was so intense and I'd be on pre, she'd be on post for a job that we just shot. She'd get in the car some days and be like, what are we shooting? And it'd be a huge job and she would have no idea. But because our language was so intimate.
Yeah.
We were like, we're going to do an Ellery, which meant like this under the camera thing because in 2017 they posted one thing on Instagram and it was like really dramatic under the talent shot. And then we're going to do a Mecca here because it was probably your work and something there, like some sort of technique that you did. Yeah. And we just worked so fucking hard for so long. But she was like to me, like we parted ways because we hit a ceiling together. And we were like, I was only ever as good as she was and she was only ever as good as the work that I was bringing in. Yeah. And that's not really fair to her as well because I depended on her to edit and shoot and she wanted to focus on one more element or do something different or whatever. Yeah. She wanted to do music videos. There's no money in music videos. And with my situation, I couldn't take on music videos. I had to do something that equated to money. So it was a really interesting parting of ways. But one of the things she said to me was like, every time I ask you about invoices or something, you feel your body tenses up like you're getting angry at me.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I don't think I was ever angry at her, but I think I was just so discombobulated by that whole cash flow thing.
So stressful.
And and we didn't have that diligence of when a job finishes, she invoiced me or whatever, so it would be paid within 14 days or something like that. Like we were so on par that it would be like, she's having an invoicing afternoon because we've sent that off to the client. She'd do all her invoices in one go.
Yeah.
And she'd bill me for like 12K.
Yeah.
And it would just be like, I can't do that. And I didn't have the hindsight at all or the learnings to be like, cash flow is king.
Yeah. It's going to be okay.
Every 3 weeks or every fucking fortnight, you're going to invoice me and we're going to stay afloat. So this thing like would rock me.
Yeah.
And it just, because I was so young, I was like 26 or something.
It's such a big number. Like those numbers just get bigger and bigger.
Yeah. And then you're like,
go, what the
but yeah. And then like clients would pay late because we're just the little guys and you're like,
clients
like,
will always pay late.
Yeah. And learning all of that, like there's no way to learn it except to do it. You just have to go through it.
Yeah.
And then I'd have team members that knew that sometimes I'd be like on set the day that their payment was due or something. And I'm the one on the account. So they knew that they weren't going to get paid that particular day. So they'd message me the night before, be like, hey, just letting you know my invoice is due tomorrow.
Oh my God.
And it was just their kind of way of being like, this is important to me that this is on time.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, all good. You know I'm on set. Is it like change the date? If you want to be paid and it's really strict and you're working, you're doing paycheck to paycheck kind of living, make it sooner so that I know that I can't actually blow that out by a day. But you know me, I'm going to be on set and I'm a one-woman show here paying the account. So like, but they didn't see it like that. And much to what you said about having juniors, they just don't get it.
No.
And you're like, how do I respect you and teach you? And like,
I think, gosh, I have so many thoughts on young team members. I love them. I fucking love them all. But I feel like this is another whole discussion. I don't want to go into it.
Well, we can. I'm sort of, as we're talking, I'm like, fuck, let's just blow this timing out and I'll make it a 2-part series. I don't care at this point. Because it's so valuable. I think everything that you and I talk about, someone somewhere is going to be like, ooh.
Yeah, I think
so I'm down.
Okay, I'm down. I love empowering young people and I love harnessing the creativity and raw like doggedness that comes with young creatives. I do say overall, like I think back to being, 20 and I worked in a cafe and I fucking loved it. It was like I actually think about it all the time because it was like my favorite time as a young adult. It was wonderful. I loved every interaction. I really focused on like learning how to converse with people from all walks of life. I thrived on like taking a latte to someone's table. I was on $15 an hour, but I loved it. Yeah. And when I went to like Cotton On or Zara and I bought something with that $15 cash an hour, I loved that thing. And like I was not making any money. I was just covering rent, but it was the most formative period of my life because I learned the value of money. I learned what it's like to be an adult. I learned how to, I guess, accordion my personality to different settings. And I have a whole notebook full of like all these characters I met in this cafe. I met my husband in that cafe. I met Lauren, who is our glorious bookkeeper, our full-time bookkeeper on our team in that cafe. I met my best friend Bella, who was a chef in that cafe. Like I have so many wonderful things from that moment. And then I went into TV and every night I was at home crying because I was being screamed at or I was being dragged into a makeup chair and a news director would be like, teach this girl how to use makeup. And then like there was this older woman who worked on the auto cue, like it's the auto cue, and she would scream in my face and all the other juniors' faces every day because we hadn't done something correctly. We'd spun a little too fast. This was before it was automated, so you would be like spinning the auto cue live.
Yeah.
Formative moments. Like I was on 45K a year working like a dog and I loved it because yes, it was traumatic and I was crying every night, but it taught me so much about what I don't want to be like, what I do want to be like, and how I want to operate as I kind of move into adulthood. Anyway, what I'm getting at is I see a lot of people coming straight out of uni who say to me they want $100,000 full-time, with no experience, and they want to be this far ahead. They want to be a creative director or this by the time they're this age. And I just think, like, you need a bit of that grit. Like, you need to go and have some hard jobs, or you need to, like, understand that you don't get paid for no experience. Like, people, there is value in coming in at an entry level and asking questions and harping for feedback. And, like, when I was in the newsroom, I would, like, dissect every bit of feedback that I got for scripts. It taught me how to write. It taught me, like, high pressure environments. Like, you have to get a script and an edit done by 4 p.m. because it's going on the news at 5 p.m. And if that gap is empty, the news director is going to scream at you. Like, I'm not saying people should be going through traumatic work environments. It's 2024. We're not there.
Yeah.
I just think there is so much merit in using those younger years where no consequences, you're not in direct face-to-face with a client. Learn all the things that you haven't learnt in uni, you know? And I think that, I'm probably going to get cancelled for this, I swear to God. But, like, when I know one of your topics was, like, what do I look for when I'm hiring someone? I want really good people, but I also want people who are, like, really excited about learning.
Yeah.
Like, and will admit that, like, I don't know about this, but I want to get thrown onto set. Like, the people who flourish in Tiny Disco are the ones who are like, can I can I pick up the camera? Can I have a go at this? Can I do this? Can I write that script? They try and solve the problems themselves rather than, like, waiting to be taught. And I think that is, like, something that's missing. They need to teach that in uni.
Yeah, 100%. Why do you think it's generational?
Yes, it's the internet. It's TikTok.
Yeah.
It's every girl boss out there saying, know your worth, you do this, you do, you know, and, you know, the amount of CVs I get where they're, like, self-proclaimed CEOs. And I'm like, but you're 21. How are you a CEO? That's not, I don't understand. I understand, like, everyone wants to have a wonderful title, but I guess what I'm saying is, like, there is so much to be learned from the beginning. You don't need to rush. And I don't think, like, I mean, my role now isn't forever. I know that my career is going to evolve probably 4 times over. This isn't my forever. I love it.
This is your, I feel like you shedded the skin. This is I feel like this is the start of your next 7 years.
It's the next 7 years. I think so. And I think, like, my dream is to step back and have someone fill my role, and I can come in and have a cup of tea and chat and, like, talk about things. But on the side, I'm, like, writing a book, or I'm doing something else, or I'm, like, shifting into something that's the next stage of me. And I think I hate seeing lots of young people. I sound like an old person, but I think lots of people straight out of uni are expecting success straight away. And that's not linear. Yeah. That's not how it works. And what is the definition of success? Like, you might get to that dream job and be like, hang on, this is not the dream job I wanted, and take a roundabout. Like, I think 2024 is the space to try everything, to chuck your hat in the ring, to be like, I don't know everything. I don't know everything. None of us know everything.
Yeah. Life
is there to be experienced. So that's what I look for. People who are, like, hungry.
Yeah. Same. I have so much to say on that as well, but I am so on such a micro scale of that. So how is Tiny Disco now as a business, and how are you operating in that business?
It forced us to really get diligent and tight on cash flow. And cash flow, I don't understand money. I don't understand any of that stuff. I take my hat off to you being that one woman band, because that is a heavy load to carry. Like, anytime, I'm fortunate in that my husband is, like, the technical cash guy. And now we have my beautiful friend Lauren, who's, like, literally, I say to her, like, tell me how much I need to make this month. Like, how much do we need to bring in? And we have actively gone for longer term contracts. And so we're shifting into a different space. So I'd say what the clients have been coming to us for the last year and a bit, which is, like, campaigns, yes, but lots of lo-fi TikTok content.
Yeah. Same.
Not anymore.
Really?
We can't make money out of it.
Right.
With a team. I think if you're a nimble, tiny team, it makes sense. But what we're starting to see is, like, brands are kind of shifting into, like, the stuff in between campaign and TikTok. So TikTok still has a place.
So, like, the content.
Like, the pretty, beautiful, on-brand, unique, art-directed content is what that's probably my niche. Because I think there's a trillion agencies now as well. You know, you're up against, and clients will come to you and be like, this agency can do it for this much. And I'll be like, that's really good. But, so you have to have a point of difference, right? If you're wanting to charge more or you're wanting to do something, you have to have a point of difference. So we really got across Cashflow. We are in such a good position. We got financial, you know, we got business advisors. We got all the things we'd really not had to look for before. All the things that people who start a business generally have, like advisors. I went on like a crazy, like meeting other people in business and just picking their brains, like, what do I do with this? How do I do this? Like, and really built some wonderful, I've got like a monthly catch up with a girl who runs an agency in Sydney, and we just have the same problems every time. And it's like, even just that, talking about your business with someone else is so helpful, because you can brainstorm and you can chat, and we're in different worlds. We go for different jobs, but we talk about it openly, and we talk about the frustrations or the great stuff or the intricacies. So, I mean, working out the cash flow and making your team understand margins is huge. I think we never really did that. And I was like, the creative should always be amazing. And then we'd look at the money and we'd be like, we actually made no money on that huge campaign. Like, how are we not operating like a business? You know, and it's very easy as a creative to be like, I want that couch in it, I want this in it, and all of a sudden we're like, do you need that couch in it? Do you need this? How can we creatively solve it and actually make a margin? So focusing on margins and educating the team. And my position, I think Tiny Disco revolved around me, not in like a cocky way, but in a like, some of those formative clients would come to me for everything. They would not trust my team because, I don't know, they just wouldn't. They would just come to me when there's a problem, and I'd be like, that's okay, this team member can solve it. And they'd be like, well, no, it's your problem now. Like, you need to come up with a solution, or you need to make this work for us. And I would always oblige, and I would always listen, and I would never really empower my team to deal with it. And now I'm like, I'm actively like, you got this. Like, come to me if there's a problem. There's problems every day. Can I tell you? There is a problem every day. And like every week I'm on the phone with a client about something, but that's the nature of the beast. My job is like educating my team and being like, this is what's happened. This is how we're going to solve it. This is how I dealt with it. This is how I want you to deal with it next time. And I think empowering them, I never really empowered them enough. So that's my thing. I've also started taking Fridays off.
Amazing.
And I do this thing every morning where I just take myself out of meetings that I don't need to be in.
Great.
I just start, and my team are adding me as optional. So I'm just starting that, like, freeing up more time to be objective and not be as intricate. Like, it's not helpful to anyone if I'm in the nitty gritty of everything.
It's a huge shift.
Huge.
Are you feeling empowered?
Yeah. The team are doing the best work we've ever done. Like, I mean, I'm a little sad because I'm like, oh, I didn't even touch that campaign. And it looks incredible. And we've had a big turnover of clients, and we've actively made a thing of like, I'm not on a lot of the work that comes in. Like, I oversee it. I have a creative director role where I have input, and they know that I've touched some parts of it. But the problem is when you have a huge team, and then you're there on that first call, and then you're there to deliver the creative, and you're there, and then all of a sudden it's really busy and you're not there. There's something unnerving for a client when that happens.
Yes.
And they freak out. And so that took a long time to learn, you know? I was always just trying to please everyone, and now I'm like, my team are like, you don't need to be in this call. You don't need to be in this prezzo. Like, just go away. Like, I give them permission to tell me to go away, and it's really nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm really happy to hear that Tiny Disco is in a place that you're really happy with how you're kind of associated to it, running it, a part of it, and you've got your you back.
Thank you. That means a lot. Yeah, it's been confronting. Very confronting.
I think everyone, when we're going through it when it comes to adversity, is like, fuck. And then you come out of it, and then you look back at it being like, that actually needed to happen.
It needed to happen. I also felt like this great shame of like, I'm running this cute agency, and I'm like a 30-something-year-old white woman. Like, people are going through so much worse shit than me. Like, I really didn't want to like give airtime to what I was going through, because I just felt like I wasn't worthy of anything or any sympathy. And now I'm more like, I think it's really important to speak about this, because if the people who are senior and who have done all the mistakes can't talk about it, then how are the people going to forge that path behind? I don't know.
I also think we don't necessarily, because we are white and privileged and doing all these fun things, we don't make space for like residue stress of just things that are like around us and how that can impose on your well-being, and they compound. Like all the things going on around you. For example, the past 2 weeks, I had an inkling I was pregnant. I'm not. Just got my period. And I was like,
do you want to be pregnant?
No.
Okay.
And I was like, I just felt like when I was ovulating, it was really different. And I was like, something's happened here. And my boobs are bigger, and I'm in this lead up to to getting my period in a different, more full on way. Wow. And I was like, am I smelling things? Is my sense of smell heightened? Like, and then it took me to yesterday to be like, bitch, you have run around for 2 weeks, like, just wondering if you're pregnant and kind of sure you are, even though I'm not. And I'm like, but I had to like take stock and be like, that's a really heavy thing to just like have going on in the background.
It is.
When, like, but what's going on in the background, you have to take stock for.
You do.
And I think that we don't. And I'm trying to like push that on, even like on Kiara at the moment, little things in her life are happening. And I'm like, are you aware though? Like, just be aware that that's happening, and that those things are changing, and give space to actually think about them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took me a while to come. Like,
I think it's really hard. Yeah, it is quite difficult to do that, and I think we're constantly like filling up our calendars with things to do, and it's like an escape. It's easy to jump from one thing to the next without acknowledging anything that's happening underneath.
Yeah.
Like, have you read Period Power?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've read half of it.
Yeah, it's one of those books where you have to have a little break in between, because it's like, how many more things about periods can I read? But it made me realize that like my whole adult life I'd never tracked a period. I never understood, like, I literally every month it arrives and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, I'm shocked it's here, and that's so stupid and so silly to not be tracking such an important thing, or like understanding where I'm at, or like how that dictates my mood, or how I treat my husband, or like he's more in tune with it because he knows when to be like Chelsea's close to whatever stage. So yeah, and I guess what I'm trying to get at with that is that, like, it's really easy to just ignore little things that aren't like in your immediate vicinity.
It's so cute when they're in tune. Like last night my boyfriend brought over ice cream and I was like, 2 tubs? He's like, yeah, it's that time of the month. And I was like,
you got it.
Yeah,
he's a keeper.
I know. I was like,
what
that's
keeper?
so cute.
What flavour?
He got 2 Maggie beers, like one the fig burnt
fancy.
everyone, and then like the chalky something. It was fucking heaven. He's
Amazing.
so good. So talk to me about your creative process.
Yes.
Because we are on process.
We need to talk about some process. Yes.
Yes, not just fucking trauma.
Talk about our, oh my God. I didn't expect that to go that way. And I did last night think about it, like, am I going to talk about this? Oh my God, I just realised my shirt's inside out. That's so embarrassing.
You can't tell. It's fine.
Yesterday I had weird pants on that smelt strange, and I made everyone smell them. And today I have a shirt inside. This is my shtick. This is just what I do. Welcome to the chaos.
I love that.
The process. What do you want to know?
Video briefs now, we have more room and we have more power, if you will, and we have more say. Back, I think, when we both started, it was very, this is what we're doing. How will video work in this? And we just kind of had to adapt and work in between photographers and do all the things. And they'd already decided what they were doing and what the point was. So I'm just there to capture. Now, you obviously get briefs in a totally different way.
Yeah.
What typically does a brief look like for you? Are they coming with full concepts and ideas and all that, or are they coming with, hey, we want to work with you, this is our product? What do you think?
I would say like maybe 1 out of 20 briefs will have an idea, and that's generally from like a big brand that understands what, like, they just know what they want and they've got an in-house creative or something. Everything else is like, sprinkle your secret sauce on, make it, tell us what we should do, which is really quite crazy cool. Like, I often think, I'm often like pinching myself going, do they really know what they're signing up to? Like, are they really into this? Are they really wanting us to come with crazy ideas? So, I mean, if you ask me this 2 months from now, it's probably going to be different to what it is now. I'm seeing a really big shift in what type of briefs have been coming in. Thankfully, we've had some nice juicy briefs come back in, which is good. I think last year, not so good. This year, there's more kind of creative flex and interest in doing things differently, which in Australia, as you know, brands don't want to do things that differently.
No, they're terrified.
They're so scared, and they might say to you, like, we do want to do it differently, and then you present them something different. They're like, no, we'll just do what we did before.
Not that different.
Yeah, not that different. Just like a smidge different, and that might mean a different font or something.
Yeah.
Actually, no, never. You can never use a different font. That's outrageous. So the briefs are generally like, you know, you've got brand guidelines, but creative freedom to a point in a lot of ways. And I think we recently started working with T2, and he, bless Josh, I hope he listens to this because I love him. I tell my team he's like one of the best clients we've ever had. He literally sat down and was like, tell me what you want to do and how you're going to do it. And so I kind of formulated, we hadn't worked with them before, and I was like, T2's a little bit traditional-ish now, but they want to be cool. They used to be cool. And he was fresh blood in the business, and I presented him with like a brand film, and he was like, go further, push it further, make it cooler, make it sexier. So then all of a sudden I was like, Loewe Sunnies, like bring in crazy ideas, like let's replicate a scene from American Beauty. Like it was really creatively fulfilling because that just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You know, you're always given the leash is extended to bring some creative thought in, and then you're pulled straight back in after V1 and maybe more and more after V2 and V3 once the, you know, brand manager or whoever or the owner of the business comes in. So we've got some really, really cool, big, crazy briefs at the moment. The team is just like constantly laughing, going, what? Like, what are we actually doing here? One, when will this go live?
Sunday.
Okay, not by Sunday. But one, we are, actually, no, I won't talk about it. We can talk about it another time. It's like the craziest shoot we're ever going to do.
Like a theme of what industry?
F1.
Oh, wow.
Like sourcing a racecourse. Crazy. And then, so my process, I think, is constantly changing. I'm not this probably frustrates my team is because I show them the way I do something one time, and then the next time it's so different. Like I don't have stylized, like, templates of decks. I'm just like, I feel what I want to present, or I feel what I want to create, and that is crazy and annoying and really stupid. My process is very fast. I think it's like the inner news girly in me. I'm like thinking in the back of my mind of that 5 p.m. deadline, which is still a 5 p.m. deadline because I need to rush home and cook dinner for the kids. But I will get a brief. I always want to brief IRL, or if the client's interstate, they need to talk me through the brief. I do not like being sent a brief that's like just on email. Do not do this to me, because there's so much withheld knowledge from marketing managers or anyone that I just love to pull out of them. And if they don't know it, I love getting them to find that information, because you need to do your research, right? You need to understand. So have that call, ask a bunch of questions. I will probably already have a bunch of questions before I go into that call. Then I start, before I even start thinking about creative. Like I think a lot of creatives just dive straight into look and feel. I'm not that. I'm like pen and paper. What is the problem? Like every brief that comes in has a core marketing problem, whether you're creating a TikTok, whether you're creating a huge brand campaign that's going global, there has got to be one core problem. And if a client says to me, there's multiple problems, I'm like, yeah, there's multiple problems going on, but I will find the one problem that is your core thing that's going to impact everything. It's going to impact the way you formulate a message. It's going to impact the way you shoot it. It's going to impact who you cast. It's going to impact how it looks and where it's going to live and what length those edits or those photographs are going to look like. And often, you know, you need to know the deliverables in order to quote accordingly, which is really tricky because sometimes clients don't know deliverables, but I will help shape that or like craft the creative around what those deliverables are. And when I say deliverables, I mean like how many still images, how many videos. And so I get really like, it's either in like a scrap of paper. There's scraps of paper everywhere around my office with just like me writing down words or like things, and then I will find that core problem and I will just hold that at the top of my creative deck or whatever I'm working on. And then I will just start thinking. I'll just be like mulling, I'll go get a coffee, I'll come back, I'll start like going through, I have like a million notes on my phone. I'm constantly like writing down lines or like lines from novels or lines from newspaper articles or lines from poems, or like I'm like almost a words first girly. Like I will think of taglines and how we are actually saying the creative before I think of the visuals, and often then I hit this frenzy mode where I'm like getting closer and closer to the big idea, and that's like my favorite place to be. Like my team, they know not to come in if I'm just like, you know, like some kind of like little Muppet just in our office, like, and sometimes they're in the deck watching me work and they're just like, this is so crazy. This is just like I love to work fast. And so then I'm kind of working on wording and visuals at the same time, and then eventually I'm just like in this frenzy, and then I hit this moment and I'm like, that's it. That's the idea.
Really?
Yeah, and it's like the same process every time, no matter the scope or the size of the job. And it's like, I mean, I say it's different every time, but it's that same fundamental process. The way I like present it may differ, or the way I like sell it to my team may differ, but I guess the step-by-step is, it's almost like I'm on drugs or something. Like, not that I would know what that's like.
No, it's like a flow. I think when
it's a flow.
You know how when you do yoga or something and you're like in the flow state or whatever, it's like
feeling
it's this it's this thing. And then if someone called you and said you had to go and leave the office at that moment, it's like the world would fucking end.
Yes.
Like, don't tell, what are you calling me for now?
Why are you ruining this moment?
Literally. Like,
although I will say, and my husband will attest to this, I can, like, it doesn't matter what distracts me, I can go straight back. I used to like write essays in a night. When I was at uni and we were dating, he would be like on the couch watching the footy really loudly, and I'd just be like writing an essay, full noise. Like, I have this ability to just, if I need to do something, I will just do it. And even if my kids come in, I'll be like, you know, do something. Okay, give me like 5 minutes, and I'll just put it there. And then I'll just like, if I do have to leave, I'll just plot like 3 little prompts for what I was going to do next, and I can come back to it. I feel like it's my superpower.
Yeah, amazing.
It's so much fun.
We are very similar in the sense of working out their problem.
Yeah.
And
you got to have a problem.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of marketing happening, and then there's a lot of filmmaking happening. And then there's not necessarily enough filmmakers and storytellers that are bridging that gap.
Yeah, agreed.
Which I think is probably how you and I have gotten to where we are in terms of the clients and the names that we're working with. Do you necessarily have anything to do with work once it's out into the world of how well it then does?
This is funny because this is why we miss out on tenders. Because they will say to us, you just don't have enough stats on how things perform. Which I'm like, yes, we don't, but like, we don't actively go and find it out, because I'm like, the brand kind of needs to tell us that. Or like, if it's social, it depends what it is, right? If it's like out of home stuff or whatever, you're going to get those assets from the media. You're going to get that information or stats from the brand or the media agency. If it's social media and you're in the back end of someone's account, of course, then you're going to look at how well things perform. I mean, we get those stats from clients and generally it's good. But yeah, I would say like, it's not something I'm interested in. Like, I am literally there for the story and the work.
Okay.
And that's a really dumb thing to say because I think brands want returns, right? They want like us to be able to guarantee this TikTok will get X amount of views, and no one can do that. You can't guarantee anything.
Yeah.
All I want to do is help maintain or like build a brand's look and feel and like tone of voice and identity. Like, I feel like that's what our job is often, whether it's a campaign that's launching a product, whether it's like helping set the tone for ongoing socials, whether it's building a strategy. We ain't about like, what's the return on that? They can go and employ someone else to do that. I'm not going to do that. Also, because I just don't know how to count either. Like, I don't even know how to count things or add. Like, my son is in grade 2 and I don't know how to do his maths. Like, I just don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not in there.
Do you do that? Do you find like how well stuff does?
Yeah, just from experience of where I have been sitting recently, like, I get told that work for Kmart, for example, is 16% above year on year.
Great.
For sales. Or, hey, you sold out that fucking microwave nationwide. Amazing. I sold 200,000
Is that
units.
like the key objective of that TikTok, to sell out stuff?
No, a lot of it's like awareness or whatever it is. A lot of it's foot traffic, just get people in store, because you can't go into a store like Kmart once and just buy one thing like that.
So bad.
So it's tricky, but a lot of the time it's just purely interest. Just get them on the website and stuff like that. So I'll work on that problem by just changing like language and tone of voice, being like, the range is insane, you have to check it out, but I'm going to tell you about this, so that it like little changes there. But I no longer do their TikTok, and I'm not shooting for them nearly as much as I was, which has been fascinating for me to wean myself off that teat of that money. But now I'm in this new, probably like I'm in the post-COVID, okay, cool, you were in survival mode, now you're coming out of it. What does this now look like for you? So it is really important for me to be able, as a one-woman show, to be able to go to clients and be like, I can sell that for you. I know how to do that. And I think I know how to do that from like days in Scanlon on the shop floor, just having...
She's a sales girly.
Yeah, like I know how to sell something. So so a lot of what, as well as me solving a problem, I also will speak their language and mirror that back to them. To be like, great, well, let's sell that out. And they love it. So...
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's...
You need to teach me some of that.
It's been interesting to figure out, like, do I care about that? But I really do. For some reason, I really love that. The economics of... And pairing the storytelling with the economics of the product and consumer behaviour and working out that piece.
Is there any part of you that's, like, ever thinks what we do is not, like... great, like selling people stuff?
Oh yeah, it's fucked. Like,
how do you get past that?
I think I'm coming off the back of a relationship with Kmart that whenever it would irk me, I just had to look at where I was on the planet Earth at that current time and then say that that's a means to an end. I'm doing that because of this. Like, it definitely weighed on me, but now I think I'm sort of free of it in a way. But also, in particular, the Kmart relationship, those products make people that can't afford life's luxuries feel like they can afford life's luxuries. And the way that they bring style into the home, they inspire and make people happy at the core. People buy things because they want to, their dopamine goes up and they want to identify with a certain trend or whatever, and they want to make their home look cute. I'm the first person that knows what it feels like when you walk into a room that you've designed and all your little things are there and being a girl is so fun and cute. You have your little tray and everything's organised. Being able to give someone that marble tray for $6 and give them that feeling of my life is together, that's kind of the way that I see it. And so you're solving their problems by like this little fucking mechanism that does a thing. It's like helping them to feed their family and get the air fryer does things a lot faster. She doesn't have enough dishes to do. Not great for the environment, but when you look at a core person in wherever suburb she's in and she needs that help, that's kind of how I would look at those clients and how. And I think because I knew the problems that I was solving for Jennifer, the 35-year-old mum that is so fucking busy and burnt out, that's kind of how I probably did so well on that contract, because I was doing the work for Jennifer, not for Kmart. And therefore there are a majillion Jennifers, therefore the sales go up. So that was kind of how
I love that
unfolded. But the like process of a TikTok for that was like, who is she? Jennifer? Okay, great. And she's doing this and she's here. Okay, great. And she's like, wants to do this, and grandma's coming over from fucking overseas and she's here. And then I'd like make up a whole story.
The whole narrative.
Just so I could speak to her. Because if you've only got 6 seconds to sell them on something and you've got 1 second to get their attention. You know how fucking quick and amazing and wow, we're going to get them in the first 3 seconds. Shut up. Shut the fuck up. But like, we do it. You know?
It's not with a logo. Do not put a logo in
never
it. Please
with a logo.
don't make me put a logo in. Wild.
Never with a logo. So how are you approaching the different platforms and all that, like in your process? You've got, like you said, T2 was like, that was a long edit, the one that went on and was, I probably watched a hero.
It was a long edit. Well, they were designed to be in store, to live in store.
Right.
primarily and lift that store experience. Their stores are glorious and gorgeous. But that creative was really designed around social first as well. If you look at that edit, and if you haven't seen the edit, check it out on Tiny Disco Instagram. But it's like all these unique, it doesn't really tell a story, but ultimately the story was about like, it's like all these little mini macro moments of like tea stacked in a pyramid and then the camera pans up, or like rose petals falling on a woman's face, and it's that speaking to flavor in an interesting way. The whole brief was like crafted around these really kooky, crazy, wild little shots, and that's how we shot it. Yeah, we storyboarded it, and yeah, we knew the order that things would go in, and that changed in post, but it was designed with social first in mind. And I think the underlying brief of that was like, we also need to lift our social game. Like, we need to look premium, and we need to look like, why is someone going to pay X amount of dollars for a box of T2 versus your Twinings or whatever in Coles? They're going to do that because they're seeing an elevated aspirational brand that's also like a premium gift as well. How do we make that work? And they wanted assets that they could use for anything, you know, whether it's flavor or Mother's Day or Christmas. And saying that, we are shooting another Christmas campaign with them, but you know, they wanted assets that you could slap copy on and speak to anything in an interesting way. And I think the way, like, I'm obsessed with 10 seconds. Like, 10 seconds to me is like, I like to create a little bit of art in 10 seconds. That's probably ultimately what I'm always trying to do. But the longer edit, that was 60 seconds. I think we had a 90-second edit as well.
I watched 60 and I was like,
long.
That's fucking long. Which is crazy for us because 3-4 years ago we were doing 2 minutes. And
I have not done anything around the 60-second mark. And there's a lot of, I think a big part of our job is education. Like, there's a lot of brands and marketing managers who aren't across TikTok or socials, and there's a big education in that space. And I think I love talking that through and being like, this is why you don't put a logo on this particular piece of work, or this is why we're using this sound. This is why we're using this trending audio, or this is why we're not going to shoot a trending piece of work, because by the time you actually put it live, it's going to be 3 months from now, and you're going to be like, no one cares about it. Like, it's this interesting, there's a big education piece with social. So I would say most of our campaigns are designed to be across paid, digital, then Instagram, sometimes TikTok. I'd say a lot of brands are pretty cautious about TikTok. And that's a whole interesting discussion as well. Like, who is your identity on TikTok versus Instagram versus it's a whole thing. But there's always like a big paid push behind it, which is always lovely and has that space for a 15-second edit. Like, a 15-second edit to me is everything. That's like beautiful. 10 to 15, sweet spot. If you can't say it in 15 seconds, you're saying too much.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. You're now, it's like very clear that you're a creative agency.
Yeah.
And you guys were much more of a production kind of shooting and editing world. When did that change actually happen? That you were doing more of a creative agency?
It happened when that first big client I mentioned to you, they basically were like, you are kind of doing better creative than people that we work with currently. Okay. And I was like, like, I don't even know. I don't know how those conversations work in ad land. I don't know how, I mean, apart from watching Mad Men, I don't know how people pitch. Like, everything I've built, I've crafted from a feeling. And sometimes we get big clients who have worlds of experience with agencies, and they're like, why don't you do it like this? Why aren't you sketching a storyboard? And I'm like, girl, it's 2024. Like, we're on Mid-Journey mocking up stuff for storyboards, and my team are using their time to like actually think about how the campaign lives on socials for you, not a sketch artist doing. So there is that, like, there's a big mismatch. And I think like new clients who aren't aware of our background are like, you need to do this, or you need to do it this way because that's what a big agency does. And I'm like, we don't. Like, we just don't. Like, we're different. And I think I would confidently say that most of our clients are really thrilled that we don't do it like big agencies, because I think the agency model, whether it be like creative agency or like creative talent management or model agencies, advertising agency, I would probably say it's an interesting time to be in that world, just from conversations with clients of like, they're not interested in spending the big bucks. They need content all the time, and they don't want a TVC that they get a 15-second cut down from.
Yeah, there are a few opportunities personally at the moment where I can be collaborating with those huge agencies that are essentially now dinosaurs to service that vertical for them. And
yes.
I haven't reached an answer yet.
Yeah.
But I'm going to Sydney next week to do a huge batch of those meetings because they're terrified.
Oh, yeah.
And we're in this interesting place where the young'uns, the spring chickens, don't know how to necessarily speak to clients. So they're like, oh, the 19-year-old will do it. No, do not let them do that. I've had this, I have an interesting relationship with agencies, and there are many in Melbourne. I've been dragged into, a brand agency's office, and I've had all the campaigns we've worked on pinned up against a wall and had the lads be like, why did you do it that way? And it's just me. And there's a team of 10 of them, and I'm like, well, Johnny, I can't tell you why I did it like that. I just like that colour or whatever. Yeah. No, I actually approach it with some strategy behind it or whatever. But they don't know how to take me. They're like, I remember I had coffee with a guy from a media agency once because I was like, what's a media agency? And he was like, you guys are you're like the pirates of advertising. And I was like, I'm into that. I could see myself wearing a pirate hat. But also that just totally solidified in my mind that we are an anomaly that no one really knows how to treat. Yeah. And I really love that. And I love that moment of when I talk to a brand and they've had shitty experiences, they're just like, huh. So refreshing.
Okay. I will get on a call with a new client last week and I'll be like, are you wearing a tie? You look fabulous. This girl, she had red lipstick on and she had a Jacquemet tie on. And I was like, this tie is amazing. And we had this and we just, best conversation ever. And I was like, that's the human interactions I want. I don't want everyone sitting down in a boardroom, having really passive aggressive conversations about work that they're getting paid too much money to do and they don't really give a fuck about anyway. Yeah. I would much prefer to have that conversation, which may not go anywhere. They may be like, no, you're not the right agency for us, but I thrive in quirk.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it. My pants yesterday, I got these new Ganni pants and they smelled really weird. And I just took them straight out of the box, put them on. And it wasn't until I got to the office that I was like, these smell so strange. And then I just made everyone, including a client on set who I hadn't met, sniff them. And it was like an icebreaker. Sometimes I tell my team, every thing or every behavior from everyone has something behind it. If a client has been obnoxious or horrible to you, if anyone is being obnoxious or horrible to you, there is a reason. And maybe they had an argument with their boyfriend. And I just to fantasize about that sometimes. I've had some horrible video calls and phone calls where I'm just like, what happened to you this morning? Really?
Yeah.
What happened?
I'm like, what happened to you in your childhood?
And that. And that. Why do you have to be like this? We're all going to die and none of this is going to matter in the end.
Yeah.
And that's really beautiful. I think that's cool. And that makes me think we're selling whatever, shampoo, tea, whatever. Let's make some really beautiful, cool stuff.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be stressful.
How are you going with that process of the creativity? And your team today, for example, you said they're shooting downstairs and using the studio that you've got.
Yeah.
How are you taking a step back on creativity and sort of learning to trust what they want to do when Tiny Disco is still very much Chelsea?
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily when you think about the way that you're delegating this year.
Yeah. I find it very easy. I think it's not helpful. Like I said before, it's not helpful when I'm in everything. And we were in a really kind of toxic rhythm with some of those clients that just would not listen to anyone on my team. And then if I literally had presented the same thing, they'd be like, oh my God, it's amazing. We love it so much. So I will jump in if they need me. I mean, I have absolute confidence in the shoot today. It's day 2 of a 2-day shoot. And I just saw the creative from the beginning and I was like, you've got it. All I want to know is, are you happy as a creative? Are you going in feeling like you're as creative as possible? Is the styling bang on? Because styling is everything. And is the client happy? And if that's there, I hadn't even met the client until yesterday. That's how detached from it I was. I wasn't needed in any of those chats. It was beautiful. It was really, really good. And then I kind of bound in, make her smell my pants. And then she's probably like, why did we go with this agency? These people are crazy. But I also went downstairs yesterday and I just saw like fun.
Yeah.
And I was like, you guys, you don't need me here. Like that's the best feeling to have. If I go downstairs and there's stress and tension, that's when I'll be like, let's chat, what's happening? Like, how can we maneuver around this? Because that happens. You have shoots where, you know, you're dealing with archaic agencies or PR people are there or whatever. There's always problems. And, you know, we did a shoot with a celebrity and my poor producer Kate was forced to go under a rain shower to test that it worked before this person stepped into the thing. And it was just like really mean and kind of not great, but like people assert their power on set all the time. And I don't like Tiny Disco shoots to be like that. I like it to be like, everyone's chill. We've all spoken about every possible outcome. Trust the process.
Let's do the work now. Yeah.
Let's do the work, you know? So
and let the magic happen. Yeah.
And when I say problem clients, like they're pressure. There's something pressurized on that other side of that, you know? If they're not trusting you and they're not letting go of certain things, they're either feeling the heat for whatever reason, budgets, maybe like something's failing, something's happening behind the scenes, or they're just maybe not sure about you guys. But I feel like we're at a place now where people know who we are and maybe they're like, have seen the work and they go, okay, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I say, there's unhappy clients all the time.
There's
part of it.
An episode that I did with Sophia Athos from Hattrick.
Yeah.
And have you listened to that one?
No.
It's good. And she was
her.
talking about how it's really important to her to let her team know the value of a contract and the deliverables on that contract and what happens to a relationship when holes start to get poked in a contract because someone somewhere dropped a ball that they didn't necessarily know was somewhat important. And it's been a really interesting learning thing for me to reflect back on and to work with. I think it's I'm really excited for you that the education piece and empowering your own team now is such a highlight for you because it's so important. And
so important.
I can't wait to see the new kind of way that Tiny Disco will go with that in play.
Yeah.
I think it's so refreshing after this whole pirate landscape and the I guess the dust has settled for you.
Yeah.
That it's and you seem much more grounded in looking at your own future.
Yeah.
Like when you talk about it and the team and stuff, you have this incredible glint in your eye about the team on set today and like knowing that they can handle it.
Yeah. Oh, they absolutely can. And it's a really nice feeling to be like, they're doing it better than I could anyway, which I probably have never, the team is better than ever. Like I'm just like, they're so squishy and beautiful and I'm just like, don't ever leave because I love the work you're doing. And yeah, it's really nice. It's really nice to kind of be in that position now after, I mean, I don't want to say fucking it up for a while, but it did feel like we were fucking it up for a little bit. And fortunately, we survived it and learnt some really big lessons. Failure gives you big lessons. Yeah, it's necessary.
Absolutely. On set today, your team, are they all your essentially creatives on the payroll? Or do you bring in contractors and different bits and bobs?
Yeah, we bring in contractors. So we used to have a full-time cinematographer and then myself, and then now he's gone freelance, of course, and now we just book him because he's fabulous and wonderful. And he said to me yesterday, it feels like I still work here. I'm like, yes, that's how I want to keep it. But we will bring in shooters. I'm trying to shoot less and less just because I feel really old and like a dinosaur and I'm achy now. And I just think there's lots of better, more skilled people with a great eye coming through. So on set, we've got my husband Stu. He was shooting stills, so he's in the business. Then we've got the creatives. We get hair and makeup in. We have a full-time stylist, so she's been styling yesterday and today. Producer is in-house, and client service is in-house. So majority is all in-house. That's always been our business model, but I think as you start to see the next round of our work come out, we've really been crafting creative around talent.
Yeah, right.
And by talent, I mean certain photographers or certain cinematographers or certain looks. So, yeah, I'm more I think I was very protective of our craft and what we did, but that could only go so far, and then eventually everything looks the same, which is a lot of feedback brands have given us. They're like, oh yeah, but it's very Tiny Disco, isn't it? And I'm like, of course, because that's my brand and I want to make everything look like our brand. So I'd say the work we're putting out over the next 6 months it probably still has that touch of us, but it's more, we're getting really granular on who are the right people on that job.
Yeah.
Whether it's hair, makeup.
It's such an exciting challenge.
It's really exciting. Really exciting.
I want to ask about the next phase that you think our industry is going to go into. Do you have any insights on that?
I'm going to say something, a hot take. I think phone footage for brands is dead.
Really?
Or dying.
Controversial.
You don't want to hear that.
No, it's not. It's not. It's something I'm working. That's not my livelihood anymore.
Yeah.
So
I think...
give it to me.
Yeah, I think the era of sloppy phone filmed content for brands, there is a place for creators and, individual, whoever wants to film stuff on their phone. I think if you are a brand that wants to control your image, and every brand has to control their image to some extent, phone footage is dead. It's dead.
Why do you say that?
Because I don't think... I'm talking from like a visual and brand tone of voice and brands spend so much money on their guidelines and the restrictions that they place around that. And I think all of that can kind of be brought undone by a couple of rogue TikToks made by a 19-year-old person who also potentially may be the face of that brand on TikTok, which is also problematic.
Yes.
Because for obvious reasons, if they leave and then I feel like TikTok, I'm very nervous about what brands want on TikTok, and I'm very hesitant to jump into TikTok with brands. We will only jump into TikTok for certain brands just because I'm like, it's too messy.
Yeah.
It's too messy and I don't want to be responsible for like undoing a brand. This is like brands like Kmart, great. Like everyone knows what Kmart is and that makes total sense. Target, same deal. Like they want to just literally sell out stuff and it's fun and it's poppy and I think they have a great shtick. More premium brands. I mean, unless you're like Prada and you're actually investing in your TikTok content in a super slick look and feel that is totally aligned to your brand and you're being really different.
And it's been thought about.
And it's
like
been
a strategy to it
been
rather than like that's a fun trend, let's do it.
Yes. So I'm actually, even our own TikTok, like we were very team-based. I'm about to just wipe our own TikTok because I'm like, it's the next iteration. I'm not...
Wipe it, like delete it?
No, just archive all the posts.
On TikTok?
Because I think even for us as a brand, like TikTok is wonderful for recruitment. Like it is wild, it is great, it is great for culture.
I can see that would have done you wonders in the...
Yes.
Hello, I love what you do.
Yeah, yes. My DMs on TikTok are wild. I cannot even go in there. But there's that lack of control around your message.
Yeah.
That makes me feel nervous.
Absolutely.
And that's not in like a weird founder controlling way. That's just in a like whenever in the history of brands would you just go rogue and post random things
I think
on a huge platform?
Yeah, the iteration of like, or that message of just test and learn, just see what works.
Test and learn.
I hate it. Overrated for huge brands. I personally am testing and learning right now. That's like, let me just give this audience a tip and see how many saves we get. Yeah. And that is what it is, but I fucking cringe inside because it's not actually what I want to be putting out. Yes. So I think there's a time and a place for it. But if you're Prada, you can't test and learn.
You can't test and learn. You can't just bring that all undone. But then also, like, if that's a tactical play, then kudos to Prada. Like, honestly, if you're a brand like Prada, you can do anything and get away with it, to be honest. But I think phone footage is dead. I think for brands, and I think considered creative for TikTok and socials is going to be huge in the next year, just based on conversations with brands, new brands we've had coming through. There is a real desire for that meat in between. Like campaigns are not as effective as they once were. You're investing hundreds of thousands of dollars in something that just looks like a sale, like sales. People do not want to just watch an ad. They want to watch something that's entertaining and enjoyable and whatever. And if you're not posting regularly, you're not resonating with your audience.
Yeah.
So there's this, you're either posting phone content, doing campaigns. There's a lot of brands that are only doing that.
Yeah.
And they need that in between.
Yeah.
So it's almost like visual branding for social media is something that I would say the work that we're doing is like establishing a unique look and feel and tone for socials, as well as campaign work.
I love that. What are you doing for the rest of the month of August? What does August look like for you?
August is fully booked. We are shooting pretty much every single day.
Wow.
But
do you guys do anything in terms of like the e-com world or anything that literally just is a cash cow?
no.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's
Were you
pretty
ever?
wild.
Was Tiny Disco ever built on?
Yeah, we really tried to do the e-com, but people just didn't want to use us for it. I think maybe like when you have an in-house team, you have to charge more, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to pay salaries. And there are a lot of people out there who do e-com very cheaply.
Yeah.
And it's just not worth it, I think. And it's also really boring.
So is all the work when you say you're booked and shooting nearly every day for the rest of August, is all of that work taken up with this medium or campaign kind of tier that we're talking about?
Pretty much, yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
From where we kind of began the conversation
I
to
know.
now the fact that the schedule's full with stuff that you also love and are like proud to be putting out.
I know, that's pretty crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty special. It's very cool. We also have like, I think what we never had before, that like pipeline of conversation.
Yeah.
You know, all the people that
It's
that
hard
lead.
to do that. Yeah, the lead.
The lead and the follow-up, and they're like, you know, if you read those sales blogs, they're like, every client needs to be touched 7 times before they respond. And it's like, like if you go down that rabbit warren of like how you're supposed to sell to clients, it's awful and it's not my jam. So my whole thing is like, have an answer to what they need straight away. Like I like to get on client calls with a little pre-prepared deck. Like, this is what we do. This is how I think it'll work for you. So you're not having that delayed period of time where I'm like, I'll get back to you with a quote or a deck or whatever. I'm like, this is what we do. If you're into it, like I'll send you some costs or whatever. And you kickstart and you show that energy from the start.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're delaying by a week or 2 weeks, which I have done recently because just purely workload has been wild, that conversation goes so slowly. But if you're like prepared on it, you can lock someone in a couple of days.
Yeah.
And that's the real win, you know, when you can get clients in the door quickly.
Yeah. It's the piece where you have to learn how to be a salesman as well as doing your craft.
Oh my God, it's so hard.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
And it's...
The theatrics are fun though.
Fucking hell. It's fun, but it's like, Jesus, it takes a lot out of you.
Oh my God,
sometimes
I love
I'm
it.
like, oh, that was so exhausting.
It does. It drains you. It's like your battery just goes, but I love it. My team are like, I always say it's like, it's theatrical. Like it's theatrics. And you have to play the room and you work out who the mean member is, and then you like try and crack. Like I always have someone on a client base who I'm aiming to crack at all times.
Yeah.
And like if you like went into the layers of my brain and like listed out all my clients, I could tell you who I've cracked, who I want to crack, who hates me, who's like, you know, you can't be friends with everyone. Some people are like, not interested, you're a wanker. And that's fine.
Sniff my pants.
Yeah, sniff my pants, guys. And I'm sure there's people from yesterday who are like, that was so inappropriate. I'm going to report her to HR. But where is
I am
the joy?
HR, bitch.
Yeah, I was like, come in my office, sniff my pants again, and then report it.
Thank you so much for coming on
gosh,
the pod.
thank you.
I could literally talk to you for hours, and I feel like we will. I'm so excited to hang out. I love it.
It's very special what you've made here. Thank you for having me.
Anytime.
Bye. Bye.